Good day, Junior Techies. I'm Mrs. Brimacombe. We're going to look now at Activity 2. On the 1st of January 2024, Aubrey Murray established a new business, Rent a Tent. His business rents out tents. Here are the transactions that took place in the first month. Required, post to the cash payment journal to the general ledger on 31 January 2024. So in Chapter 3, Activity 2, we've done where we've posted all the transactions into the CPJ. The next step is posting this to the general ledger. So when we're posting to the general ledger, again, a reminder, the general ledger consists out of the balance sheet account section and the nominal account section. Each account will be given a specific number. So if you see B2, it means it's in the balance sheet section, account number B2. If you see N3, it means it's in the nominal account section, and that will be account number N3. So each account will be given a specific number for in which section it belongs to. If I go and have a look at what goes into the balance sheet section, it's all my owner's equity, assets, liabilities, nominal account section, all my income and all my expenses. Please go back and go to Chapter 1. If you are not sure, go and study classifications of accounts. These will help you in applying it, accounting, completing the general ledger. So as you know that we have to follow the double entry principle, which means that for every debit, there is a credit. This means that now you can study from the CPJ. Bank will always be credited. The rest will be debited. So if I add everything up on the debit, it should equal the total on the credit side. If it doesn't, it means that somewhere you did not apply the double entry principle, you made a mistake. Posting now from the cash payment journal. Again, bank is credited, the rest is debited. Everything must be posted from a money column. We're going to take the end totals, and from sundry accounts, we are going to post it on the day of the transaction. We never ever take the total of sundry accounts, that 48,850, and post it as what? We have to take everything that's under sundry accounts, and on the day of the transaction, that's when we take it to the general ledger. So we're going to start with the balance sheet section, and the first account is drawings. So drawings is classified as an owner's equity, minus on the debit and plus on the credit side. So there are two ways in understanding how to post it now to the drawings account. Number one, the principal I said, bank is credited, the rest is debited, or you can follow the basics by understanding. But what will happen with drawings if the owner takes for personal use? It means that his equity will decrease, therefore it should be debited. So in my CPJ, we're going to look now for drawings. On the 18th, the owner took 13,000 for personal use, which means that we start with the month and the year, January 2024, on the 18th, details is the contra account. From the CPJ, my details will always be bank, and the amount 13,000. Next step, indicate where did you post it to the general ledger. We posted it to account number B2. Next, we've got equipment. So with equipment, it's regarded as an asset. So when we buy equipment, our assets will increase. Bank is credited, the rest is debited. Again, two different ways in understanding how to take it to the general ledger. If I look at the information given in the CPJ, there were no money column open for equipment. So under sundry accounts, we've got 2 different days on which equipment was purchased, on the 2nd and on the 18th. On the 2nd and on the 13th. So now important, I cannot add the 2 together and post it as one figure to equipment on the debit side. This must be shown separately. From sundry accounts, we apply always the basic principle of on the day of the transaction, when did it take place? So, the first transaction was on day 2. January 2024, on day 2, my contra account, bank, CPJ, number 1, and the total 23,800. Immediately indicate in your journal that you've taken that to the debit side in account number B3. The second transaction happened on day 13. I don't need to write January 2024 again. Only the date, details, bank, from which journal, the CPJ number 1, and the total 3,100. In this activity, it wasn't required to total or balance the general ledger. We're going to start focusing on that in the next activity. So for now, you're going to leave it as it is. Now we indicate next to equipment on day 13. We've taken that to account number B3. Next, we've got bank. Bank has a money column. From the CPJ, bank is always credited. Please do not take each one of those individually to the bank account. The general ledger is a summary of all my journals. We're going to post at the end of the month what was the total payments. So we start with the date, my details, total payments, or you can write sundry accounts, from which journal, from the CPJ, and the total 64,720. Indicate that you've taken that to account number B4. This is also to ensure that you post everything from the journal to the general ledger. Next, we've got loan, Capitec Bank. It's a liability which will always decrease on the debit side and increase on the credit side. So from our CPJ, if I make a payment, think about it. What will happen to your debt? If you make a payment, your liabilities will decrease. And now I can also, a second thing to remember what to do is apply from the CPJ, bank is credited, which means that the rest is going to be debited. On the day of the transaction, which means January 27, because we're posting from sundry accounts, it happens on the day on which the transaction took place. From the CPJ, my details is always bank and the amount 1,100. Indicate you've taken it to account number B5. We are done now with all the owner's equity, assets and liabilities. So now we're moving on to the next part, which is the nominal account section. The first account that we're going to post is wages. Wages does have a money column. It's an expense, which means it will increase on the debit side and decrease on the credit side. So when my expenses increase, it increases on the debit side. Therefore, we're going to have January 2024, on the 31st, my details is bank, CPJ 15,000, and we post it on the debit side of the ledger account. Have we applied the double entry principle? Yes, bank is credited, the rest is debited. And underneath wages, we're going to indicate we've taken this to account number N3. That means it's in the nominal account section, and that's the number of the account. Next, stationery. It's an expense. On the debit side, January 2024, on the 31st, my details bank, from which journal, from the CPJ, and the total 870. Indicate you've taken that to account number N4. Next, we've got consumable stores. So now we're going on to sundry accounts. Everything which we have not highlighted yet must be taken to the general ledger. So the first one, we've got consumable stores. It happened on the 18th. So on the debit side, we start with the date, details, bank, from which journal, from the CPJ, and the total is 614. Indicate that you've taken that to account number N5 in the nominal account section. Bank charges is an expense which will increase on the debit side. On day 25, we've made a payment to Capitec Bank, but please take note, I don't write Capitec Bank in here. That's why we've got the journal. We are going to say that bank is going to be credited and the rest is going to be debited, which means bank charges, our expense is going to increase on the debit side with 210. Indicate that you've taken this to account number N6 in the general ledger. Next, we've got rent expense. On the debit side, January 2024, on the 25th, on the day on which the transaction took place, my details, bank, from which journal, from the CPJ number 1, and the total was 7,000. Indicate that you've taken this to account number N7. So if I now look at my CPJ, we have nothing which we have not yet taken to the general ledger. Everything is highlighted and each one of them is assigned a number where in the general ledger that we post it to. If you now look at, have we applied the double entry principle correctly? Bank was credited with 64,720. If you add everything up on the debit side, that totals equals exactly the same. If it's the same, it means that we've posted this correctly to the general ledger. Thank you very much. I want to leave you with this quote. Our greatest weakness lies in giving up. The most certain way to succeed is always to try just one more time. In the next activity, we are going to start looking at posting from the CRJ and the CPJ and looking at how to balance it at the end of the month. Have a wonderful day.